And what is the biggest difference for you, like between your rookie year and this year? Like, I guess where have you made the biggest jump?
That's a good question. I'll just say, like, just my mentality, really. I knew I always could play and run and hit, very instinctive, but it's just the way I approached it last year, and then now it's totally different. I was a rookie, thinking I thought it was gonna be sweet, but everybody good, and I really had to check myself and reevaluate myself after the season and see the things that I was doing, and I compared it to Fred's film, and I thought it was trash. So this offseason, I tried to be a sponge and do everything Fred does, just from the way he carries himself off the field and to on the field. Coach Johnny, he sent me a lot of film work over the offseason, and I just stayed in. I came back early around March, kept me in with Johnny, and it's been helping me so far. I'm not all the way there yet, but I see a huge difference even in just the way I take my first step and with my first few shuffles, and I compare it to last year. It's a big difference. I still got a long ways to go, but yeah.
A little faster this year than last year. Did you spend some time in the offseason kind of remaking your body a little bit?
Yeah, I don't think I was slow. I know I ran a 4.7, but shit. But I would say it's just locking in the way I eat. Remember I said Fred, he helped me with everything. Just being a sponge, understand, seeing what he eats, seeing what he does, and I did the same thing, and I felt the difference, and I understand now that those are things I need to keep improving on, and that's going to help me go far in this league.
At what point did the switch flip where you realized that you had to change what you were doing?
Sure, it started last season, actually. I noticed it, but I know during the middle of the season, it's kind of too late to try to change it. It's not too late, but you get what I'm trying to say. So before the offseason even came, I already had a plan on what I wanted to do, the things I needed to work on, and how I was going to do it. So, yeah.
That last game of the season when you started, right, played the whole game, what did that teach you, or were you able to use that as a pretty good tool to go, maybe build some momentum going into the offseason?
Yeah, that was my first game coming off IR, too, so I just knew that was a huge opportunity for me just to show the coaches that I could play, and I didn't want to let the guys that was already in there, like Fred and D, they've been playing the whole season. When I got out there, I just felt like I shouldn't let them down, so I just stayed focused and just did what I had to do.
You've been filling in for Fred and Mike, but what's your ability to slide over and play Will if that's what they want you to do?
I could play anywhere I feel like they need me, so it's really on their call, but if it comes up, I'll be ready.
You got a good pop on Genty in this game. Who took the worst of that? You seem like you got hit.
Nah, it was a great hit by both of us. That's what you want from a defender, not even just me. He go into that kill zone, somebody go sting him, and the rest of the defense rally to the ball. It was a 2-yard gain, so I'm proud of it. So, yeah.
You learned about yourself last year. Are you imparting any of that on Nick Martin at this point?
Yeah, the things I went through last year, Nick is going through the same thing. So even though we the same age, I kind of treat myself like he's my little brother. I make sure I'm in his head before we go out on the field. And one of the Raiders game, he had a hell of a game, and I just told him, like, just be you, run and hit. And that's what he did. So it's just good to see Nick just keep doing it and getting better.
What were your first impressions of Nick? Sorry.
To him after the first game when he had kind of a challenging.
Nah, Nick knows when he needs to do better. I don't really be on him like that, but when it's time for us, both of us to get on that field, or if it's time for me or time for him, we make sure we encourage each other, go out there and just be us.
I'll say, what were your first impressions of Nick? What gives him a chance to kind of be a special player?
I just say it's really a lot of guys' mentality, the way he approaches things. He's fast, he's physical, and when you combine that together, man, you're a beast. So it's just a lot of technique things that he need to work on, and same thing I need to do. So we both just getting better.
A couple more. Is there one thing from being a sponge with Fred that you said, oh, I can do that?
Fred, I used to ask Fred about his tactics that he used off the field, and Fred told me he's not telling me anything else until I get my nutrition and my hydration together. And that's I took that serious because like he's right. Like I can't do the simple stuff right. Then what makes me think I could go out there and do all the things he's buying to help him help his body be better. So yeah, just I started on that, and then seeing him, just yeah, I'm very grateful for Fred. Honestly, I'm thinking about it now. It's just he helped me come a long way.
What did you cut out of your diet?
I'm a real sweet tooth guy, so I like a lot of candy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, not no more.
Fala was saying that we were talking about you mentioned your 40 time a little bit ago. I just know if you asked him if you were fast enough to play all three spots and versatile enough, and he said, yeah. He goes, Dre Greenlaw had a molasses slow 40 time. But that's GPS says that's not how he plays. That the way you feel?
Yeah, you know, football speed and the 40 speed, them two different things. If you run a 4.4 in the 40 but don't run a 4.4 on the field, then yeah, so.
How would you describe now your hydration and your nutrition? What are you focusing in on both of those?
I'll just say that's a priority for me, especially the hydration. You know, sometimes I have my cheat meals, but the hydration is everything. That's how soft tissue injuries come along, and you know, I don't want that. I want to stay on his field as much as possible. So, yeah.
Johnny says that you know, year two, you really know the defense a lot better. Do you find yourself have the ability to play faster because you do know the D?
Yeah. Like I said, off season, I kept meeting with Johnny on my own, just trying to get even the times he couldn't. I just told him to send me some stuff I could look at and work on, and he did, and it just helped me a lot, especially just seeing Fred. Every single clip was Fred, so yeah, just seeing that, it helped me a lot, just be able to just go fast and not think and be able to be a leader also.
What was the hardest candy you've given up?
The hardest candy?
Yeah, like the toughest thing you can say goodbye.
I love Swedish Fish, but yeah, I gave it up.
They're feeling. I know we've seen you back in practice, but how's it feeling?
It's felt really good overall, honestly. I think the biggest thing, you know, with any injury is just, you know, making sure that you maintain that strength, you know, throughout. That way, you know, you continue that strength on. So, you know, just making sure I'm staying on top of it.
You ended last season with a scary incident with your knee injury where you got carted off in Arizona, right? Was there any lingering issue for you going into the offseason, and just how did you approach this coming season?
No, not going into the off season. I would say, you know, I obviously spent some time here rehabbing that, but you know, I was able to take my time. You know, granted it was going into the off season, and made sure that I got to a really healthy point. You know, that way going into OTAs and then, you know, further on in that camp, you know, I was good to go.
How scary was the incident?
You know, it's just kind of one of those freak things. You know, you get twisted in an awkward way, and then you know, stuff happens. Unfortunately, you know, that's a game in itself. So,
I feel like your biggest jump from last year to this year is?
you know, I just think the transition was a lot smoother. You know, I spent a lot of time here in the off season. You know, just because, you know, I felt as, you know, this is going to be the place where I'm recovering. This is going to be a place where I spend obviously my time all season. So being able to develop that routine here in the off season, I think was a big step and made that transition into camp a lot easier.
Stephen was just in here talking about how much he's had to change his body and his lifestyle in his second year, realizing after his first year that it didn't work out as well for him. Is that something you also had to do?
You know, I think just naturally, just with diet and stuff, you know, it's not that I had a poor diet last year, but I think there were certain things that I focused, you know, just to allow me to have a better frame, you know, going into this season. I felt like all off season, you know, I was able to do that, which so I feel pretty good where I'm at now.
How do you feel in this camp? Do you feel faster?
You know, I wouldn't say faster necessarily. You know, I just feel like I can move a little bit better. You know, I think relatively, like most of the time, like I always feel fairly fast, which is good. But like I said, you know, that in and out of the cuts stuff, you know, I feel a little bit better this year. So.
You caught 15 out of 16 passes they threw you last year, so you showed really good receiving skills. Does that go back to playing receiver in high school? Where do your receiving skills come from?
You know, I think, you know, naturally, yes, but you know, just spending time working on that kind of myself, you know, in college, you know, in the early end, there wasn't a lot of balls that I caught. I think further on than that, going into Louisville, it started to showcase a little bit more. But even outside out of game time and practice time, it's something that I work on and focus on. As far as route running and catching balls. So I think that's something that's been important, and then it's obviously important in this offense as well. So.
How much do you pick up in that regard from Christian? Because as running backs go, he's probably the best in terms of running routes and catching
Yeah,
them
I
up.
mean, obviously the best to learn from as far as that goes. But at the end of the day, everybody's different. Everybody's going to run routes differently. But there's a lot of things that you can pick up, technique wise that work. But at the end of the day, I still have to work within myself and what I can use to my advantage, because he has a skill set of his own with his route running. So I mean, he's one of one with that. But just continuing to ask for tips here and there. He's always been helpful with that.
You guys were getting close to running out of healthy running backs. Was it nice to say, I'm okay, I can now help join that field, get back to practice?
Obviously I think timing wise, it's nice, but as you guys know, with this game, stuff happens fast, stuff changes quick. So, you kind of always have to be ready for that. And obviously praying for a speedy recovery for all those guys. But, like I said, stuff changes quick.
The leaders on the offense, George is very vocal. What is Christian like in the running backs room?
He's a great leader. I think just within our group, within our room, he helps a lot as far as just creating that mindset, creating the standard for that room, as well as Coach T along with that. There's a really high standard in that room that we hold ourselves to. So just all of them making sure that we play to that, each and every day. It's important to them, it's important to me. So just continuing to uphold that.
Your guys' last drive today on practice was a pretty long march downfield, and Christian was in for, I think, all but about 2 of those carries. Is that kind of like the dream offensive drive, I guess, for the first team offense, not necessarily for you, but to be able to get down the field and like that?
I think as an offense, by nature, you obviously want to move the ball as much as you can. So, I think as an offense, that's the standard that we hold ourselves to as far as, being able to move the ball and move it efficiently. So, I think that's it with that.
We've heard about what Bobby Turner is like during the draft process. What is he like for you guys as rookies, and then what has changed this year for you?
Obviously, like I said with Bobby T, he's one of the most detailed in the game. That's what makes him such a great coach. So, obviously, you appreciate him a lot for that. And, he stays on me, which, I couldn't appreciate more because, I know I need it in order to reach my potential. So, just the details that he has within the game, being able to expand my knowledge based on, or, just outside of running the ball, it's important. That's what makes complete backs. Obviously he's coached a lot of great ones. He's, made a lot of great ones. So, just continuing to take his coaching points every day. That's important to me. That's what I'm going to continue to do. So.
You love to turn in homework every week.
Oh yeah, no, you'll stay on your stuff for sure. But, that's why he's so sharp, and that's what makes us sharp too. So.
What was it like picking the offense up last year, and what do you enjoy most about the offense now?
Like I said, I feel like that transition, obviously going into it year one, it's a very complex offense. So, picking it up, it can be difficult. Your mind's racing 100 miles per hour. But I think this year, just the biggest thing was all of that stuff slowing down a little bit. So, you can focus on like the quality of those reps that you're getting. But for me, I feel like that's been the biggest transition.
I was asking Bergen the other day, is there a returner that he studies? And he said, he named a guy. How about you? For you, I mean, your game, do you have when you were at Louisville or in Wisconsin, was there a back that you kind of emulated?
I think back-wise, he was a mentor for me when I was young, was Jonathan Taylor, just because, I think being like bigger backs, being able to still have speed, that was kind of where we were similar. So, I just modeled myself like, a lot of with what he did. But like the more I'm in this room, the more I watch film on him, and you know, Raheem, I think me and him are, as far as like speed wise, you know, he's you know, might be faster than me, but you know, I think just play style and everything, I think we're pretty similar in that category as well. So.